what's the long-term impact of medical-related data breaches?
Yeah. So the short-term impact of a data breach is basically that patients become victims of identity theft. So their data ends up in the hands of criminals who use it to make money or to get medical services for free. That's the shorter impact. But in the long term, there is a threat, of course, that data breaches will undermine the trust of people in the healthcare system, and more specifically in the usage of IT in healthcare. And the consequence of that is that the adoption of IT in healthcare might not go as fast and as efficient as we would hope. So basically, it undermines the usage of IT within the healthcare system in the long term. And that's why we have to fight it.
Frederik, how can healthcare providers effectively protect sensitive data?
Well, yeah. It's very important to protect sensitive data, not only to avoid security breaches, but also to comply with regulatory requirements. So more and more countries are indeed making regulation, mandating that health information of patients is adequately protected. Technically speaking, there are typically two ways to protect access to data. So the first way is to encrypt the data, and the second way is to protect access to it. So basically, vendors of medical applications like electronic health record applications, they have to use a combination of both encryption and access control, authentication, to protect access to this data by physicians. Similarly, providers of mobile health applications, they have to make sure that data which is processed by these applications is also protected using encryption and authentication.
And what areas do you see in the healthcare market that require strong authentication?
Yeah. So all the applications that process patient health information, medical data, are actually the applications which also need strong authentication, strong access control. So one example of that is the access by healthcare providers, such as physicians, towards electronic health record applications, which are the applications that process very sensitive data. Besides that, there are also more and more web portals being used by hospitals and clinics, which allow healthcare providers and patients to access their data. And this is another area where access control, strong authentication is very important. Maybe a third area that I'd like to mention is the protection of electronic prescriptions. So in more and more countries we see that physicians make electronic prescriptions. Of course, it's important that only the right physicians have the ability to create these prescriptions. So for that reason, these people also need to be strongly authenticated. Yeah.
And lastly, how can healthcare providers successfully address both the identification and authentication challenges for their digital services?
Okay, yeah, I'd like to give a few tips there. So first of all, it's very important for healthcare organizations to understand the environment in which they are operating, and then more specifically the regulatory environment, because regulation, as I mentioned, is more and more defining requirements for identification and strong authentication of healthcare providers. So first of all, understand the regulatory environment. Besides that, when deploying a strong authentication solution, it's very important to think about convenience. So security controls, security technology, like strong authentication technology, is only accepted, is only successful if it is accepted by the users. So it's very important to involve the users who will be actually using this technology in their day-to-day life, to involve them into the decision-making process. Otherwise, they will reject it. And then maybe finally, I would say work with a trusted technology provider who has a lot of different authentication technologies, so that the hospitals can choose the best technology for their specific use case.
Great, thank you very much, Frederik.
Thank you.